The fifth court session. First tragic scene. Recruiting the army. Chief Justice. Court is now in session. I think the defense has a request. You may present it. Defense.
Yes, Your Honor. I ask you to request the media to refrain from commenting on what the prosecutor is presenting, because these comments influence the public opinion, which could consequently affect the jurors even with sequestration. I also request you to remind the jurors to completely refrain from accessing the newspapers, radio, TV, and internet due to the negative propaganda that they have towards the defendants. Thank you, Your Honor.
Chief Justice. As for the media, we have no control over it, for we live in a society which respects freedom of expression, so we cannot help you in this request. And as for the second request, there is no problem. He turns around towards the jurors. I would like to remind the respected jurors regarding the importance of abiding by the court order to refrain from following the media and internet or talk with anybody regarding this case. I thank you in advance for your anticipated cooperation in this matter. And now, Mr. Prosecutor, you may proceed in continuing the presentation of your evidence in this case. Prosecutor stands up with confidence and tranquility as all eyes are focused on him, especially after the latest media comments about his strong, attractive personality and his extraordinary competence in facing the defense team till now, such that he became the talk of everyone and the focus of attention of commentators and reporters. Respected judges, respected jurors, at the end of the last court session, we had presented to you the letter which the second defendant received from the first defendant, in which he requested from him to go after the supporters of al-Hussein without mercy, and to send his armed forces and patrol guards to face al-Hussein, peace be upon him. Regarding this letter, it has been cited in Tariq al-Tabari and Mas'udi ibn Kathir ibn al-Athir al-Yaqubi ibn Asakir and al-Khawarizmi that the second defendant immediately rushed to carry out the order of the Caliph. So he began to recruit the army, organize the battalions, dispatch the troops, send out agents, spies, and patrol guards all across the roadways, entrances, and exits of Al-Kufa and the surrounding area. He sent the commander of his police, Hussein ibn Numayr al-Tamimi, to organize the armed forces in it and to supervise the troops patrolling around Al-Kufa. Then the second defendant, Ibn Ziyad, asked Al-Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi to be in front of al-Hussein with 1,000 horsemen to meet al-Hussein alayhi salam. Sure enough, Al-Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi was the first to meet al-Hussein's caravan in a place called Bi Hasm, in the southern part of Al-Kufa. To your surprise, al-Hussein provided water to them as well as their horses, as they ran out of water despite his knowledge that they were an advanced force for Ibn Ziyad's army against him. After al-Hussein has led them in the noon prayers, he delivered the following speech to them. O people, here I present my excuse to Allah and to you in this place. I do not come to you until your messengers and letters has reached me stating, come to us as we have no leader. May Allah unite us with you in the right path. If this is still your opinion and position, here I am. So if you assure me about the validity of your invitation, and if you give me your solemn promise and your certified pact, I will then enter your country with you. But if you did not do that, and you dislike my arrival and hate my coming, I will then depart you and return back to where I came from. I request that this speech be added to the record. Respected judges and jurors, is this the speech of a man who came to head a large, well-equipped army seeking to fight the ruler, a caliph, such that military forces need to be recruited against him? In this speech, does he threat to fight, to use weapon, armed forces, or does he insinuate that in any way? Or is it the speech of a peaceful man who has been persecuted, chased, and has fled from the tyranny of the oppressive ruler, seeking a safe haven for him and his family, whom the people of Al-Kufa has invited to protect? So he came to them after he found no other alternative, and after the new oppressive ruler prosecuted him even in the sacred house of Allah. Here, he is politely offering to them to either give him protection, as they promised, or they leave him to return back home. Furthermore, if Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, was heading a great army, would he be in need to address these 1,000 men, while fighting them would be an easy task for him? Rather, this is a great proof that Al-Hussein was in a civilian caravan that only included his family and some of his companions. All of them did not exceed 100 persons. Did that deserve the dispatching of an army consisting of 30,000 men to fight the civilian caravan and kill Al-Hussein, peace be upon him? Ladies and gentlemen, it is a crime that dishonors the history of mankind. It was just a peaceful, innocent civilian caravan that only sought a safe haven to escape the aggression and tyranny of the new ruler, the first defendant. It was a small civilian caravan composed of wandering men, women, and children, whom the first defendant terrorized by his decree to kill all of them. So they became like an injured and imprisoned bird, which tries to escape away from its hunter and predator, and which seeks protection in any place. Now, does this injured and imprisoned bird deserve that military forces be dispatched to fight him? This is impossible to happen even in the worst jungle in the world. So how can this happen in the human world? Furthermore, Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, took out 2 huge bags filled with the letters of the people of Al-Kufa, which he had received from them, promising them protection, support, and safe haven. Al-Hur then said to him, I was ordered not to leave you when I meet you until I take you to Ibn Ziyad in Al-Kufa. Al-Hussein alayhi salam refused, of course, and he attempted to proceed with his caravan, but Al-Hur prevented him despite his understanding of Al-Hussein's situation and the fear that the big battle would take place to kill Al-Hussein. In fact, Al-Hur requested Al-Hussein to take another road that would not proceed to Al-Kufa, nor take him back to Mecca or Medina till he updates Ibn Ziyad, the second defendant, about the matter. So Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, proceeded with his companions on one side, while Al-Hur and his horsemen proceeded on the other side. When Al-Hussein reached a place called Adib al-Hajanat in Nainawa, a messenger from Ibn Ziyad, the second defendant, arrived with a letter to Al-Hur saying, O Al-Hur, when you receive this letter, stalk and harass Al-Hussein ibn Ali, and do not abandon him until you force him to camp at an open and unprotected place without water, and do not leave him until you bring him to me. I have ordered my messenger to accompany you at all times until you carry out my orders. Salam. I request the court to include this letter to the record. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look and see how the second defendant orders Al-Hur to tighten up his surveillance and harass the civilian caravan of Al-Hussein, and to force him to immobilize at an open place where there is no shade, water, or protection. It is clear now from this letter that when the second defendant wrote it, he knew very well that Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, has no army, and that he is in a civilian caravan consisting of children, women, and elderly. It is noticeable also that the second defendant sends a spy to watch over Al-Hur, the commander of his army, to make sure he executes his orders. It is as if he doesn't trust him. In fact, that was the habit of Ibn Ziyad, to send people to act as spies on each other in order to guarantee in order to guarantee their loyalty and to make it harder for anyone to disobey him. Surely, it was a police state which makes the Gestapo and similar organizations seem like toys compared to it. Defense.
I object, Your Honor, to these analogies.
Chief Justice. Objection sustained. You may continue, Mr. Prosecutor. Prosecutor. Al-Hur starts to harass Al-Hussein's caravan as he was ordered. Some of Al-Hussein's companions requested Al-Hussein's permission to fight Al-Hur before more enforcement comes to him. But Al-Hussein refused to start any fight with them because he did not come for that. Then Al-Hur forced Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, to stop in the land of Karbala on the 2nd of Muharram, 61 AH. Al-Hussein has gathered his children, brothers, and family members. He looked at them and wept. He then said, O Allah, we are the purified family of your Prophet Muhammad, and we have been forced out, persecuted, and exiled from the sacred haram of our grandfather. Bani Umayyad has transgressed and crossed their limits in their aggression to us. O God, take the revenge for us and give us victory over the oppressive people. Indeed, the people are slaves of the life of this world, while religion is only at the tip of their tongues. They stick to it as long as it is in their best interest of their worldly affairs, but when they are tested, the number of the true believers will be few. Then the prosecutor paused and choked on his tears as they trickled down his beard. His face shined with light even more as if it were a full moon at night. Then he resumed his talk. I request the court to include this document to the record. Now are these words coming from a man who wants to initiate war, seek mischief, and threaten the sanctity of the state? Or aren't these the words of a man who escaped away from oppression and injustice, rejecting falsehood and aggression, and sees himself now as a victim of deceit, broken promises, and a grand plot against his life? After all, does life have any worth or value when it is among the traitors and oppressors? Isn't death in the case considered to be happiness for every free and honorable person who rejects injustice, aggression, oppression, and lowliness? Al-Hur and his men stopped in parallel to the camp of Al-Hussein. Then he sent a message to the second defendant, Ibn Ziyad, informing him that Al-Hussein has stopped in Karbala. So Ibn Ziyad wrote a letter to Al-Hussein, saying to him, O Hussein, I have come to know that you have stopped in Karbala, and Amir al-Mu'minin Yazid ibn al-Muawiyah has written instructing me not to rest or sleep or eat a full meal until I kill you, or you surrender to me and acknowledge the rulership of Yazid. I request the court to also include this letter to the record. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is the second defendant announcing clearly that the order was issued to him from the Caliph. The first defendant to kill Al-Hussein, because he knew very well that the option of the surrender was absolutely out of question for Al-Hussein, as he would never give his pledge of allegiance to Yazid as Caliph. When Al-Hussein read the letter of Yazid, he threw it from his hand and said, Surely, those people who bought the pleasures of the creature in return for the wrath of the Creator will never succeed. By that he means that the second defendant has no excuse in following the orders of the first defendant, since these orders are unjust, unfair, and does not please God, who revealed the Islamic message by which they were ruling the nation. Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, said to the messenger of the second defendant when he asked him of this response to the letter, I have no response to him because he has deserved the punishment from God. By that he means that the second defendant deserves punishment from Allah, the just God, because he supported the oppressor ruler against the lonely, oppressed, the persecuted one. When Ibn Ziyad learned of Al-Hussein's response, he became very angry. Then he summoned his companions and said, O people, who of you will take the command in the fight against Al-Hussein in return for the governorship of any country he pleases? By that he means that which of you volunteers to become the commander of the army that will fight Al-Hussein, and in return Ibn Ziyad will award him with the governorship of any country he wishes. During the time of Muawiyah and his son, governorship meant collecting money, enjoying wealth of the country, seizing hold of properties, and living a luxurious life without accountability, at the expense of the poor people in that country. So governorship has become a great temptation, as it is solely acquisition of wealth, and this is absolutely contrary to what the Islamic law dictates, and totally contradicts the tradition of the Holy Prophet. Nobody answered the second defendant despite his offer. Why didn't anyone answer the second defendant? Because everyone knew very well the graveness of this matter due to the great position and esteemed personality of Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, as he is the grandson of the Prophet of Islam, and he is the true guardian of the Islamic message. They also knew that Al-Hussein was in a civilian caravan who was not accompanied by any armed forces. Hence, there is no honor or heroism in fighting him when he is alone in the desert. Moreover, many of the attendees were actually among those who wrote to Al-Hussein inviting him and promising to support and help him. When nobody answered, the second defendant Ibn Ziyad turned to the third defendant Umar ibn Sa'd ibn Waqqas and said to him, O son of Sa'd, you conduct this matter. He meant that he chose him to carry out this mission. Few days before, the second defendant had assigned the governorship of Al-Ray state, which includes what is today most of Iran, to Ibn Sa'd, the third defendant. This state at that time was very rich, wealthy, and a target for the ambitions of those who pursue the opportunities to gain power and wealth. Ibn Sa'd, the third defendant, then answered, O governor, if you wish, please excuse me from fighting Al-Hussein. The second defendant, Ibn Ziyad, replied to him and said, I have excused you from this mission, and I have also excused you from the governorship of Al-Ray state. So go and sit in your home, and we will appoint someone else. It is clear here that the second defendant is implying that the governorship of Al-Ray state is the price for commanding the army that will fight Al-Hussein. In other words, he wants to say, if you refuse to lead the army, then you will not take the governorship of Al-Ray state. This is how matters were handled in the government of the first and second defendants. So the third defendant, Umar ibn Sa'd, said, O governor, give me some time to think about this matter. This answer means that the ambition of the third defendant to gain the governorship of Al-Ray state has occupied his mind. So he wanted to balance between the shame of commanding an army to fight Al-Hussein on one hand and the governorship of Al-Ray state with its wealth on the other. So he requested some time to think about this matter and to make consultation before making his decision. The second defendant gave him a day to make his final decision. The third defendant, Umar ibn Sa'd, consulted his companions and trustees, and all those whom he consulted advised him to reject the offer of the second defendant, Ibn Ziyad, due to its grave consequences of his religion, plus living with shame for the rest of his life. So next day, he went to Ibn Ziyad and tried to persuade him to appoint someone else to command the army, and at the same time to secure his appointment in the seat of the governorship of Al-Ray state. But Ibn Ziyad refused and insisted to tie the two matters together, so either Umar ibn Sa'd takes both together or rejects both. When Ibn Sa'd hesitated, Ibn Ziyad threatened him, saying, By God, O son of Sa'd, if you don't go to Al-Hussein and fight him and inflict harm on him, I will behead you and demolish your houses and confiscate your properties, and I will not keep you alive no matter what.
I request the court to add this statement to the record. Ladies and gentlemen, look at the method of threatening and terrorizing used by the second defendant. Ibn Ziyad threatens him that if he doesn't accept the mission, he will then kill him for no reason, destroy his home, and seize his property. Bear in mind that this is happening to the proposed commander of the army for just hesitating. Then imagine the pressure
that the lower rank and regular soldiers were subjected to in order to go out and fight al-Hussein, peace be upon him. Here, the third defendant capitulated and gave into his greed and fear, so he accepted the shameful mission and said, "I will move to face him tomorrow, God willing." Ibn Ziyad then became pleased of him and gave him lots of money. As for why Ibn Ziyad insisted to appoint the third defendant as commander of the army, the reasons are as follows. First, Umar ibn Sa'd ibn Waqqas, his father, is one of the well-known companions of the Holy Prophet. By choosing Umar bin Sa'd as commander of the army, this will give a false impression that the whole Islamic nation is unified in fighting al-Hussein, and not Bani Umayyad, the first defendant and his father alone. Second, the third defendant was also one of the nobles and dignitaries of Al-Kufa, so his appointment as a commander of the army will indicate that Al-Kufa and its men are the ones who are fighting al-Hussein and not Bani Umayyad. Third, the third defendant fought with Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, peace be upon him, the father of al-Hussein, in the Battle of Siffin. So his leadership of the army against al-Hussein now will convince the Shia supporters of Ali that al-Hussein is erroneous, and so they will be encouraged to join the army to fight against al-Hussein, or to at least be passive. Fourth, Umar ibn Sa'd was afflicted with phobia of Bani Umayyad after he witnessed with his eyes how Muawiyah, the father of the first defendant during his era, has poisoned Sa'd ibn Waqqas, his father, to clear the way of successorship of his son, the first defendant. Defense.
Objection, Your Honor. This is only a claim which has not been approved, and it is from rumors and fantasies of the enemies of Islam.
Chief Justice. Objection sustained. You may continue, Mr. Prosecutor. Prosecutor. Ibn Ziyad supplied Ibn Sa'd with 4,000 men and said to him, "Encircle al-Hussein and cut him off from the Euphrates River." I request the court to include this in the record. This was a direct order from the second defendant to the commander of his army to prevent al-Hussein and his civilian caravan from accessing water while they are in the middle of the desert, under the scorching heat of the sun. This is surely a great crime against humanity, and it is also a heinous war crime. Umar ibn Sa'd moved the next day with 4,000 men to Karbala, and there he met al-Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi with 1,000 fighters. So the total number of fighters under the command of the third defendant, Umar ibn Sa'd, became 5,000. Then he sent a message to al-Hussein, peace be upon him, questioning what made him come to this place and what made him leave Mecca. So al-Hussein responded, "I do not come to this place, but the people of your country wrote inviting me to come to them so that they give me their pledge to protect, support me, and not betray me. So if they dislike me, then I shall leave them and return back from where I came." I request that the court add this document to the record. The third defendant, Umar ibn Sa'd, then wrote to Ibn Ziyad, saying, "In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, to the Governor Ibn Ziyad, from Umar ibn Sa'd. So now Allah has put out the fire and brought unity and goodness to the nation. I have caught up with al-Hussein and sent to him a message asking him what made him come to this place. So he mentioned that the people of Al-Kufa sent for him to come so that they can support and protect him." He added, "If they have changed their minds, then he will return back from where he came, either to Mecca or any city you prefer. So he would be like any one of the Muslims. I wanted to inform you of that, so you can decide. Salam." I request from the court to include this letter in the record. When the second defendant, Ibn Ziyad, read the letter of Ibn Sa'd, at first thought he was going to consider al-Hussein's proposal, but the fourth defendant, Shimr ibn Dhil-Jawshan, said to Ibn Ziyad, "Do you accept that proposal from him after he landed in your country? By Allah, if he leaves your country without putting his hand in your hand, and gives his pledge of allegiance, he will then be more strong than you, and you will be more weak than him. I request this letter to be added to the record. By this statement, the fourth defendant is encouraging Ibn Ziyad to reject the peaceful proposal of al-Hussein. He urged him to attack al-Hussein and to get rid of him by force. This is a strong proof against the fourth defendant in urging and pushing towards the massacre and promoting the rejection of all peace talks. Ibn Ziyad thought for a while, and then he embraced the opinion of Shimr, the fourth defendant, and chanted, "Now that our claws caught hold of him, he desires salvation, but it is too late." Then he said, "Does the son of Abu Turab desire salvation? No way. May Allah not make me escape his punishment if al-Hussein escaped from me." This statement of the second defendant clearly shows his unrelenting insistence to take advantage of the available opportunity at hand and obey the order of his master, the first defendant in Damascus, to kill al-Hussein, peace be upon him, and get rid of him once and for all. It shows his assured intention of completing the mission which had failed to be executed in Al-Madinah and in Mecca. He wrote a letter in response to Ibn Sa'd, saying in it, "I received your letter which informed me about al-Hussein. When you receive this letter, ask him to give his pledge of allegiance to Amir al-Mu'minin Yazid. If he does not give his allegiance, then bring him to me. Wassalam." I request the court to include this letter to the record. The appearance of these words is different than its hidden, because Ibn Ziyad knew very well that al-Hussein would never give his pledge of allegiance to Yazid as a caliph, as al-Hussein, peace be upon him, knew. Yazid's ill behavior, morals and actions that totally contradict Islamic laws. He also knows that al-Hussein will never accept unconditional surrender. So in this case, Ibn Ziyad is leaving only one option for al-Hussein, and that is direct armed confrontation, which he knew that it will definitely end with the killing of al-Hussein, peace be upon him, and his companions, because he didn't have any force to face his huge army. There were no two options, as it may seem from the letter. So when the third defendant, Ibn Sa'd, received the letter, he said, "We belong to God, and to him we shall return." Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad does not want peace, and Allah is the helper. I request the court to add the statement to the record. Then Ibn Ziyad gathered the people in Masjid al-Kufa. He preached and ordered them to go out and fight al-Hussein. Then he distributed money to the chiefs and leaders of the various tribes. He called out to them to prepare and join Omar ibn Sa'd, the third defendant, to support him in fighting al-Hussein. The first to go out and join the army of Omar ibn Sa'd was Shimr ibn Dhil Jawshan, fourth defendant, with 4,000 men. Then Yazid ibn Rikab al-Kalbi with 2,000 men. Then al-Hussein ibn Numayr al-Sukuni with 4,000 men. Then Mudayr ibn Rahina al-Mazini with 3,000 men. Then Nasr ibn Harsha with 2,000 men. Then Shebd ibn Rebay with 1,000 men. Then Hajar ibn Abjor with 1,000 men. All these armed troops joined the forces of Omar ibn Sa'd, so his total number of soldiers reached approximately 22,000 by the 6th day of Muharram, 61 years after al-Hijrah. Ibn Ziyad then wrote to Umar ibn Sa'd, saying, "So now I do not leave any excuse for you. You have abundance of horses and men, so send me all your news day and night, with every traveler coming or leaving." I request the court to include this letter to the record. For Ibn Ziyad, all that was not enough. He also sent Zuhr ibn Qais fi Ju'afi with 500 horsemen to patrol the Sirat bridge in order to prevent anyone exiting al-Kufa to support and help al-Hussein. Then he sent Suwaid ibn Abdul Rahman al-Munkari to head another armed force to patrol the streets of al-Kufa and urge the people to go out and fight al-Hussein and to arrest those who refused to do so. In addition, he sent more recruits to Ibn Sa'd such that his aimed forces, who reached about 30,000 fighters, who were supposed to confront a civilian caravan that includes women, children, elderly, and sick, and its total number does not exceed about 100, more or less. So what type of equality or justice or bravery is that? Chief Justice, court will break for a 30-minute recess and shall resume afterwards. Court is dismissed for now. Second tragic scene, preventing access to water. Chief Justice, the defense, do you have any comments, a rebuttal to what the prosecutor presented so far? Defense.
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to exercise our right in discussing the evidence presented, but we request to postpone that to the beginning of the next court session.
Chief Justice. Do you agree with that, Mr. Prosecutor? Prosecutor. We have no objection to that, Your Honor. Chief Justice. You may then proceed in presenting your evidences, Mr. Prosecutor. Prosecutor. Respected judges and jurors. Respected judges and jurors. In obedience to the order of the second defendant in preventing al-Hussein and his civilian caravan from accessing water, the third defendant Umar ibn Sa'd sent one of his commanders, named al-Azraq ibn al-Harith al-Sa'di, along with a force of 400 horsemen to guard the Euphrates River. For this purpose, al-Hussein and his companions suffered from thirst, so al-Hussein started digging and searching for water. Fortunately, one spring of water erupted and they all quenched their thirst. Then the spring dried. When Ibn Ziyad, the second defendant, learned of that, he wrote to Umar ibn Sa'd saying, "It has come to my attention that al-Hussein is digging wells and accessing water, so he and his companions drink water. So when you receive this letter, prevent him from digging for water as much as you can and tighten your encirclement. Do not let him taste a drop of water, just like they did to the purified Uthman ibn Affan. Wassalam." I request the court to include this letter to the record. The statement from the second defendant is enough to convict him as a war criminal. The act of preventing water from civilians who include women, children, and elderly is definitely a war crime and a crime against humanity, and a crime of mass murder. Apparently, it is a crime that was carried out due to past grudges, animosities, and envy for reasons in the past that has nothing to do with the current events on the plains of Karbala. The motivation was to seek revenge for an event which happened 26 years ago before Karbala. Historians are in consensus that al-Hussein and all those in his caravan did not play any role, big or small, in what happened to the third caliph Uthman ibn Affan. So why did the second defendant tie the two events together? Surely it is only to justify that heinous crime which is about to be committed against the whole civilian caravan, including women, children, elderly, and sick. When that letter reached the third defendant, Ibn Sa'd, he toughened up on al-Hussein's caravan and called one of his men, named Amr ibn al-Hajjaj al-Zubaydi, and sent him leading a big force of horsemen, and ordered him to completely guard the Euphrates banks, to completely prevent al-Hussein and his companions' family from reaching the water. As a consequence, the innocent victim suffered greatly from thirst. Here, al-Hussein called the third defendant, Umar ibn Sa'd, to a face-to-face peace talks to end the situation. Negotiations. Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, tried to convince Ibn Sa'd not to fight him via different proposals, but the third defendant refused all peace attempts with the excuse of fear that Ibn Ziyad would confiscate his property and harm his family, and so the negotiations failed. It is important here to note that al-Hussein proposed to Ibn Sa'd to abandon the fighting and to retreat from the battle since he is forced on it. Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, proposed to compensate him for any loss that may be inflicted upon him, but Ibn Sa'd rejected all offers. This makes him directly responsible for what happened in Karbala. Here, he had a chance and good opportunity to reject fighting, which he expressed his desire not to command and to avoid this matter with honor. Yet, here he is wasting this opportunity for the sake of materialistic grants and wealth that is contaminated with the innocent blood of children, women, elderly, and sick. So he is completely responsible for what happened in Karbala, along with the first and second defendant. When Ibn Ziyad, the second defendant, came to know of these negotiations, he sent a letter to Ibn Ziyad blaming and reprimanding him, saying, "No, I have not sent you to Al-Hussein to make peace with him, or to negotiate with him, or to promise him safety, or to act as an intercessor for him in front of me. Look, if Al-Hussein and his companions accept unconditional surrender, then send them to me peacefully. If they refuse, then march to them and kill them, and then mutilate them as they deserve that. After you kill Al-Hussein, let horses trample on his chest and back. This will not hurt after death. This is to fulfill a promise once I have made. If you carry out my order, I will reward you greatly for being obedient. But if you refuse, then resign from this job and turn over the commander to Shimr ibn Dhil-Jawshan, the fourth defendant, for he is more decisive and stronger than you in determination, and I have ordered him to do so." I request the court to include this letter to the record. When Shimr the fourth defendant handed this letter, and Ibn Sa'd read it, he then said to Shimr, "Woe be to you! May Allah keep you from me, and may He invalidate what you have brought. And I thought that you are the one who convinced Ibn Ziyad to reject a peaceful resolution to that conflict, and spoiled our efforts for reconciliation. By Allah, Al-Hussein will never surrender, and he is carrying the heart of his father in his chest." So Shimr said to him, "Tell me, what will you do? Will you carry out the orders of your commander? If not, then turn over the commandership to me." Omar ibn Sa'd replied to him, "I will carry out the order, and no dignity for you, rather be a commander on the infantry." Your Honor, I would like to add this text to the record. It incriminates each of the second, third, and fourth defendants individually and collectively of committing war crimes and crimes against humanity on the 10th of Muharram in the land of Karbala in the year 61 AH. As it is clear from this letter, the second defendant completely rejects any negotiations for a peaceful solution that may save the undersized and helpless civilian caravan from a dark, bloody fate. He insists that Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, surrender and gives his pledge of allegiance to Yazid, while he knows very well that Al-Hussein will not accept that no matter what the price is. Therefore, Ibn Ziyad insists on this so that a bloody conflict will be the only option left. This is actually what he aims based on his bloody nature, his previous animosity to the household of the Prophet, and his strong desire to please his master, the first defendant who is seated in Damascus on the top of his bloody regime. Ladies and gentlemen, see how Ibn Yazid speaks openly without bashfulness or shame, and he tells the third defendant to mutilate the dead bodies after killing them. He doesn't even exclude the great personality of Al-Hussein, peace be upon him, and his high position with respect to religion and his close relation as grandson of the Holy Prophet. On the contrary, Ibn Ziyad targets the mutilation of Al-Hussein specifically and instructs Ibn Sa'd to let the horses trample over his body after killing him, just to fulfill a statement he has said earlier at a moment of anger. His foolishness here does not make him realize the consequences of his actions at the level of the Islamic nation generally and the people of Al-Kufa specifically. Furthermore, he threatens Ibn Sa'd that if he doesn't obey his orders, which totally contradicts religion, military etiquette, bravery, and humanity, he then has to hand over the commandership of the army to another monster who is more barbaric, tough, and bloodthirsty. Also, we see the fourth defendant, Shimr ibn Dhil-Jawshan, was eager to carry out the heinous mission if Ibn Sa'd declines from taking that responsibility. This affirms his satanic role in setting the stage for the massacre to happen and his active participation by pressuring Ibn Sa'd to execute it, and also by presenting himself as a substitute who is ready to carry out all of the deviant and inhumane orders of the second defendant. Thus, he is completely responsible of everything that took place in Karbala, and he cannot claim that he was only carrying out orders. Furthermore, the third defendant agrees to carry out this heinous mission simply because he was threatened to be fired and prevented from getting grants, despite the fact that he had a golden opportunity in front of him, which the second defendant, Ibn Ziyad, gave him by offering him to resign. But he decided to stick with obeying the orders when he saw his substitute ready to take over. Obey the orders and redeem the reward which he greedily hopes to acquire for himself. So he chose to commit the crime voluntarily and without pressure from the ruler because of his personal greed and materialistic aspirations. Therefore, the third defendant is completely responsible for what happened in the land of Karbala. What's strange in the whole matter is that each of the three defendants knew very well that the Prophet of Islam forbid the mutilation of dead bodies, and he said in the authentic narration that is agreed upon, all Muslims do not mutilate even a murdered dog. So the Prophet forbids the mutilation of the body of a biting killer dog. Then how can one mutilate the body of an oppressed, estranged believer who is the grandson of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him? The only sin he committed is that he called for justice, freedom, respect of human rights, equality, and the respect of Islamic laws which the whole nation was built on. Here, I challenge any of the defense representatives to claim that this narration is not authentic, or that the Messenger of Islam allowed mutilation of dead bodies, or that he practiced that during his lifetime with any person, even with the worst of his enemies. The Prophet forbid this practice, even with those who mutilated Muslim bodies, like the body of his own beloved uncle, Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib, at the Battle of Uhud. Doesn't that indicate that the Islamic nation at the time of al-Hussein, peace be upon him, was not being ruled by the Islamic law which it was built on? Rather, it was being ruled based on personal interests, tendencies, and tribal animosities. All of that is totally against the Islamic teachings which call for peace, justice, forgiveness, equality, and respect of human rights. It also indicates that the policies and practices of the first defendant's regime were not only far away, but totally contradicting the Sunnah or tradition of the Holy Prophet of Islam. Chief Justice, I think everyone would like a break now, so adjourn this court session, and we shall resume again after tomorrow at 10 a.m. sharp. Thank you. Court is dismissed.